Imagine waking up, right? You're pouring your morning coffee, and you see a headline that it makes your blood run absolutely cold.
Oh, yeah. The worst kind of morning.
Exactly. And we aren't talking about, a massive tech conglomerate losing credit card numbers or,
Yeah.
or some retailer getting their supply chain disrupted.
Right, which is bad, but
This is different. We were talking about one of the most trusted, most vital institutions in the entire country, a national crisis support charity getting breached by a hacker.
yeah. That is terrifying.
You immediately think of the absolute worst case scenario, the most vulnerable people in society in their darkest moments, suddenly having their private pleas for help just exposed to the internet.
Because when the words crisis line and data breach share a headline, I mean, the mind inevitably jumps to a catastrophic, irrecoverable loss of privacy.
Exactly.
The stakes literally do not get higher than the mental health and safety data of people seeking immediate help.
They really don't. And that is the scenario we are exploring today in this deep dive. We're pulling from a highly detailed post-mortem report that was published on August 5th, 2026 by Tech Talks with Kinsoft.
It's a fantastic report.
It really is. They analyzed a July cyber incident involving Lifeline Australia. And our mission today is to figure out how an organization facing a potential public catastrophe of unimaginable scale managed to turn it into a survivable week.
Which is honestly incredible.
Right. But to lower everyone's blood pressure immediately, we need to establish a crucial fact from the source material right at the top. The 131114 crisis line was never compromised.
Yeah, that is huge.
Lifeline confirmed that absolutely no help seeker data was accessed by the attackers. Zero.
And that single fact dictates everything else we are going to analyze today. I mean, it fundamentally shifts this from a conversation about a tragedy to, well, a masterclass in architectural defense.
But here's the thing. The hackers were undeniably inside the network.
They were.
They breached the administrative systems and they extracted data. So, okay, let's unpack this. How does a massive, highly trusted charity keep its most sensitive data completely safe while hackers are literally inside their administrative systems?
It's the million-dollar question.
To answer that, we have to look at who is on the other side of the screen. We really need to understand the threat actor because this profile, it totally shatters the stereotype of the modern, highly organized ransomware cartel.
It really does. We are looking at an entity going by the handle 2019.
2019, just a number.
Yep, just 2019. And on July 11th, this threat actor posted on an underground hacking forum claiming to have stolen more than 10,000 records from Lifeline.
Wow, 10,000?
Yeah. They even provided sample records in the post, data from a community engagement officer, a program manager, a volunteer. But what's fascinating here is that the defining characteristic of this attacker is not sophistication or scale. No, it's sheer relentless volume. There's a threat intelligence firm called Vessert, and they tracked this specific handle. They linked them to around 40 different victims just since January.
40 in like 6 months.
Exactly, with at least 25 of those located in Australia alone.
I mean, threat intelligence firms tracking an anonymous handle on a dark web forum always sounds like a bit of, I don't know, dark magic to me.
Yeah, it does sound like magic.
How do they actually attribute 40 different breaches to a single anonymous user named 2019?
Well, it really relies on pattern recognition and operational security failures by the attacker.
Like they get sloppy.
Basically, yeah. Threat intel platforms ingest massive amounts of data from underground forums, Telegram channels, leak sites. They look for shared infrastructure.
Oh, like IP addresses and stuff.
Exactly. Maybe the attacker uses the same IP addresses or hosting providers to launch their attacks, and they analyze the specific tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
For example, if 2019 consistently exploits a specific unpatched vulnerability in a really niche piece of remote desktop software across 20 different targets, that becomes a digital fingerprint.
Oh, I see.
They also track cryptocurrency wallets. If the infrastructure costs or the occasional ransom demands funnel back to the same cluster of digital wallets, analysts can tie seemingly disconnected breaches back to one actor.
That makes a lot of sense. But still, 40 victims in basically half a year is just a staggering pace.
It's incredibly fast.
And they aren't going after massive banks, right? The report lists a film festival, a museum, medical clinics, a real estate firm, a travel agency.
Mostly small to mid-sized targets.
Right. So if we look at this through the lens of physical crime, this isn't some highly sophisticated cinematic casino heist with blueprints and synchronized watches.
Not at all.
It's more like a smash and grab burglar systematically walking down Main Street, throwing a brick through the window of every small shop they see, grabbing whatever is in the cash register, and just sprinting to the next block.
That smash and grab dynamic perfectly defines the modern threat landscape for mid-sized organizations. I mean, headlines naturally gravitate toward big brand ransomware groups that operate like corporations.
Oh, yeah, with their own PR arms and dedicated leak sites.
Exactly. But a single, highly automated actor spending months indiscriminately tearing through small businesses, nonprofits, and charities, that is the actual reality.
It's wild.
And the most bizarre element of 2019 is that they were frequently dumping this data for free.
Wait, for free?
Yes, they weren't demanding multi-million-dollar ransoms.
That raises a huge question about motivation then. Because if you're a hacker, why target a charity that operates on donated dollars in the first place, especially if you aren't even trying to extort them?
It mostly comes down to two factors: the economics of reputation in the cyber underground and the concept of an attack surface.
Reputation, like clout.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
In the criminal ecosystem, data is currency, but so is clout. Dumping verified data from a known national organization proves your capability to other threat actors.
So it's like a twisted resume builder.
Precisely. It might be a resume builder to gain entry into higher-tier ransomware affiliate programs. But more importantly, a charity like Lifeline is targeted because of its structural reality.
What do you mean by structural reality?
Think of an attack surface as the total number of windows and doors a burglar could potentially test on a building.
Okay, sure.
Charities, especially national ones, have an incredibly complex, sprawling attack surface.
Oh, because the report breaks down Lifeline's structure, and it is vast. It's this federated structure. You have a national office, 17 separately incorporated member organizations, over 40 accredited centers, and more than 10,000 volunteers.
And a federated structure multiplies that attack surface exponentially.
Really? How so?
Well, every single one of those 17 member organizations represents its own independent IT estate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you're dealing with 17 different IT budgets, 17 different patching schedules for software updates, and 17 different sets of volunteers rotating in and out.
Wait, let me challenge that premise for a second, though. Wouldn't a highly fragmented, federated structure actually be safer?
How do you mean?
Like, if an organization is totally decentralized and a hacker throws a brick through the window of one local clinic in a rural town, they are trapped in that specific building. They don't have the master keys to the entire national network. So why does decentralization make it worse?
It's a good point, but because in modern IT environments, these nodes are rarely truly isolated. They rely on shared services.
Shared services.
Yeah, so the local clinic might manage its own Wi-Fi and its own laptops, but those volunteers still need to log into a centralized national HR portal or a shared email server or a national volunteer training database.
Ah.
This introduces the concept of lateral movement. Attackers don't just break in and stop, they look for the trust relationships between systems.
So they use the local access to climb up to the national level.
Exactly. If they compromise a volunteer's credentials at a small, underfunded local branch, they use those trusted credentials to pivot laterally into the central administrative systems.
And when you factor in a volunteer workforce, you are dealing with BYOD, right? Bring your own device.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just a decentralized network. It's 10,000 people logging in from their personal laptops, their personal Android phones, operating on home Wi-Fi networks.
And that is the operational nightmare for defending a charity. An enterprise corporation can mandate that every employee uses a company-issued, heavily locked-down laptop with endpoint detection software monitoring every process.
Right, they own the hardware.
Exactly. A charity cannot force a volunteer to install intrusive security monitoring on their personal iPad. IT has near zero visibility or control over the devices actually touching their network.
So 2019 leverages the sprawling, highly vulnerable attack surface. They get into the administrative side, and they post on this dark web forum claiming to have 10,000 records.
That's right.
But the report highlights a massive complication for the incident response team here. The data leaked by the hacker was doctored.
Yeah, this part is wild.
Lifeline noted that falsified information was deliberately mixed in with the real staff and volunteer data, but if you have successfully breached a network, why invent fake rows of data?
We touch on the ego and marketing aspect of cybercrime again. Attackers frequently pad their datasets with synthetic identities or duplicate records to artificially inflate the size of the breach.
Oh, because claiming 10,000 records sounds significantly more intimidating than claiming 2,000.
Exactly. But it creates this dual trap for the defenders. You cannot take an underground forum post at face value and immediately announce a catastrophic 10,000 record breach because you might be publicly confirming a lie and inciting unnecessary panic.
But conversely, you can't just spot 3 fake names in the database, declare the whole thing a hoax, and go back to sleep.
Right, because hidden inside that padded file are real names, real emails, and real volunteers whose security actually has been compromised.
So what do you do?
Verification is the only way through that trap. And verification during an active crisis is grueling, highly technical work. Lifeline, their external incident response experts, and even journalists from a publication called Information Age had to independently verify the dump.
I mean, how does an incident response team actually do that on a tight timeline? They aren't just sitting there with a printout reading 10,000 rows, asking each other if they know a guy named John Smith.
No, definitely not. They utilize database querying and cross-referencing against their Active Directory.
Which is what, exactly?
It's a centralized system that manages all user identities and permissions. They take the data dump, which is usually a messy CSV or JSON file, write scripts to parse it, and automatically compare the leaked names, emails, and employee IDs against their own internal HR databases.
Okay, that makes sense.
They also look for anomalies in the metadata.
Like what kind of anomalies?
Well, if a leaked record claims a user was created on a Sunday at 3:40 a.m., but the internal logs show no such activity, they can flag it as synthetic. It is a massive data science problem executed under extreme pressure.
But if the incident response team has to spend their first 48 hours just doing forensic data science to separate the attacker's fiction from reality, that seems to leave a massive window for the hacker to pivot.
It does. It's a huge distraction.
So how on earth did Lifeline ensure the actual crisis callers were protected while all this administrative chaos was happening? Like, if the hacker's in the HR directory, what stops them from jumping over to the crisis logs?
And this brings us to the core architectural lesson of the Kinsoft report. By July 14th, Lifeline confirmed exactly what the hackers accessed: names, work emails, dates of birth, phone numbers, departments, office locations, and internal system data.
Okay, so all administrative corporate directory data.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I try to visualize how a network keeps one side completely safe while the other side is practically burning, and it reminds me of a submarine.
A submarine.
Yeah. A submarine is designed with deep water pressure in mind, so the hull is divided by sealed bulkheads.
Oh, okay, I follow.
If a pipe bursts in the kitchen and that room begins to flood, you don't lose the entire vessel. You slam a massive steel door shut, lock it down, and completely seal off the flooded section. The water physically cannot travel from the flooded kitchen into the control room.
That physical analogy translates perfectly to the digital concept of network segmentation.
So that's what they did.
Yes. Lifeline was able to provide that absolute guarantee that help seeker data was safe because they deliberately built digital bulkheads between their corporate administrative systems and their service delivery systems.
But how is a digital bulkhead actually constructed? Because it's obviously not a physical steel door.
Right. It is built using strict software rules, network air gapping, and zero trust architecture.
Zero trust. We hear that a lot.
Yeah, so in a flat network, once you're past the perimeter firewall, you can see and interact with everything. But in a segmented network, you divide the IT estate into isolated zones using virtual local area networks, or VLANs. But more importantly, you enforce strict identity and access management.
So even if the hacker steals the credentials of a high-level HR manager in the administrative network, those credentials are, like, mathematically useless on the service delivery side?
Precisely. A zero trust model assumes the network is always hostile. It doesn't matter if you're using an internal HR account. If you try to query the crisis call database, the system demands separate, heavily restricted authentication.
Wow.
The pathway between the system that tracks a volunteer's office location and the system that logs a caller's plea for help simply does not exist for everyday users.
That is brilliant.
It is.
Yeah.
Lifeline identify their crown jewels, the data that would destroy their mission if compromised, and they architected their entire environment around isolating it.
So the ship survives because the attacker is trapped in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But I want to analyze the fallout of what was actually lost in the kitchen. If the crown jewels are safe, And the attacker only walked away with a glorified staff directory, work emails, departments, phone numbers, reporting structures. What is the tangible harm? I mean, a lot of that information is public on LinkedIn anyway.
The harm lies in the operationalization of that data. That stolen directory is not just a list of names. It is a prepackaged, highly potent scam toolkit.
A scam toolkit.
Yeah. We often think of phishing as those obvious, poorly translated emails asking for gift cards. But when an attacker has your exact internal directory, they can launch highly targeted spear phishing attacks.
Oh, I see. It's the difference between a random email and a text message that says, "Hi, Sarah, it's John from IT support at the national office. I see you report to David in the community engagement department.
Exactly.
We are executing a mandatory security patch on all volunteer devices after the recent breach. Please click this link to re-authenticate your volunteer portal access."
Yes, exactly. It weaponizes internal trust. And because we already established that volunteers are using Bring Your Own Device, IT has no technical way to block that malicious text message from reaching Sarah's personal phone.
Man, that is insidious.
Furthermore, this data fuels credential stuffing attacks.
Credential stuffing. We hear that thrown around a lot in cyber reporting. Walk us through the actual mechanics of that.
Well, humans are notoriously bad at password hygiene.
We really are.
We reuse the same passwords across multiple services. So attackers compile massive databases of usernames and passwords breached from other platforms, say a decade-old LinkedIn breach or a recent fitness app compromise.
Okay.
They write automated bots that take the thousands of legitimate Lifeline email addresses they just stole, pair them with those previously breached passwords, and stuff them into Lifeline's login portals at a rate of thousands of attempts per second.
Just hoping just one volunteer reused their password somewhere else.
Exactly.
So losing the staff directory gives the attackers the exact map of doors they need to stuff those stolen keys into.
Which is why the Kinsoft report specifically praises Lifeline's incident response regarding internal communications.
What did they do?
During a breach, the immediate instinct of an executive board is often external damage control, right?
Yeah.
Rushing out PR statements to protect the brand reputation in the media.
Managing the optics, yeah.
But Lifeline prioritized neutralizing that scam toolkit. They proactively and immediately warned their own staff and volunteers about the likelihood of incoming, highly personalized scams.
That's smart.
They recognized that their own people were now the primary targets of secondary attacks, and they used internal communication to harden the human element of their attack surface before the hackers could even leverage the stolen directory.
Well, we have covered an immense amount of ground here. A relentless, volume-based attacker, the vulnerabilities of a federated volunteer network, the forensic nightmare of doctor data, and the absolute necessity of network segmentation.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. So what does this all mean? When we synthesize all of this, what are the core actionable takeaways for you, the listener, navigating this environment?
The report crystallizes this into 3 essential directives. First, verify before you trust a leak.
Because threat actors lie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are financially and reputationally motivated to lie. Whether you are an incident response professional, a board member, or a journalist covering a breach, you must assume underground forum claims are inflated until proven otherwise through rigorous internal log analysis.
Right. And second, segment your sensitive data. You have to build the digital bulkheads.
You must separate your core service data from your corporate and administrative systems. An organization must be able to state, unequivocally and with technical proofs, which side of the wall a breach touched.
And Lifeline's architecture allowed them to give a clean, confident answer that protected their callers. And the third takeaway is a direct challenge regarding governance. The source text includes a line that I honestly think should be written on a whiteboard in every nonprofit boardroom. Goodwill doesn't stop credential stuffing.
It really doesn't. And that is the crux of the issue for anyone listening who sits on a board of directors, donates heavily to a charity, partners with a not-for-profit, or operates as a vendor for one.
You have to treat cybersecurity capability as a fundamental part of your fiduciary duty and your duty of care.
Yes, you cannot assume that because an organization is doing vital humanitarian work in the world, the threat actors will grant them a moral exemption.
They won't.
The attackers, specifically automated volume-based actors like 2019, have clearly identified the charity sector as a soft target rich with sensitive data. The sector's funders, board members, and corporate partners need to recognize this reality. Board meetings can no longer just focus on fundraising and program delivery. They must ask uncomfortable, highly technical questions about zero-trust architecture, identity management, and the security budget required to protect federated networks.
Because hoping for the best is not an acceptable IT strategy when people's lives are on the line.
It's just not.
And speaking of the vital work being done, we want to echo the sign-off from our source report today. If exploring the mechanics of a crisis support breach or thinking about these scenarios has raised anything difficult for you, please remember that support is always available. Lifeline is there for you on 13 11 14.
They provide an essential service, and their architectural decisions during this incident prove they take the protection of the people using that service incredibly seriously.
To recap, we explored how a smart, deliberate design decision to segment corporate systems from crisis caller data saved Lifeline's core mission from an opportunistic threat actor sweeping through the sector.
They survived a worst-case scenario because they assumed the perimeter would eventually fail, and they planned their internal bulkheads accordingly.
But, as we analyze the success of that defense, it leaves a larger structural question unresolved.
It really does.
Yeah.
We just broke down how complex and expensive it is to defend a federated BYOD network against an automated attacker who hits 40 targets in 6 months.
It's massive.
It took significant resources, external incident response teams, and sophisticated architecture for Lifeline to navigate this safely.
And that fundamentally changes the economics of running a nonprofit. I mean, if you need Fortune 500 level security architecture, network segmentation, and digital forensics teams just to operate a local crisis center or a food bank safely, the math simply doesn't work for most grassroots organizations.
If every small community group is facing the exact same barrage of automated credential stuffing and lateral movement attacks as a major corporation, but they possess a fraction of the budget, we are heading toward a dangerous paradigm. Will basic cybersecurity become an insurmountable financial barrier to entry for humanitarian work? Will only the wealthiest, most heavily funded nonprofits be able to safely exist in the digital age?
Man, that's heavy.
It is a systemic vulnerability that the philanthropic sector is going to have to reckon with.
That is a complex reality for the sector to navigate, and definitely something to seriously mull over. We started today analyzing a terrifying scenario, but we found that by understanding the threat, verifying the data, building strict digital bulkheads, and communicating proactively, a potential catastrophe can, in fact, be turned into a survivable week.
It just takes meticulous planning.
Thanks for going on this deep dive with us. Stay curious, keep analyzing the systems around you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.